Hi, friends. Thanks for joining me. I've been out for about a week and I'm sorry to not have been able to make content. Had a very weird week last week. And so, as a result of that, I thought, what better way than to create content related to some of the lessons I was learning? Today, I want to talk about how to change the environment and perspective that you are stuck in when you have forgotten that things were different or you never knew of a different life or a different way. So go back with me in time to 2001. You're heading to the airport to go pick up a friend who is flying in. You have signs and flowers. You breeze through security. You go up to their gate and cheer when they arrive. And then walk out, head to the baggage claim, and off you go. What could be easier and what could be nicer? Well, if you are younger, and I was having a conversation with some older adults where there were also some youth involved, 17 and younger, when we were talking about that experience of going to the airport, picking people up, walking through security, not having to figure out, did I have a bottle of water? Do I have a soda in my hand? How many ounces of liquid are in my containers? These young people could not have been more surprised. Like their faces, they're like, "What? Really? Wait, you didn't go through like a metal detector?" No, we didn't go through metal detectors. You didn't have to like have your bag scanned? No, we didn't have our bag scanned. And we didn't have to take our shoes off. You didn't take your shoes off? These young people have never experienced the airport in a different way than us older adults had. And they had no frame of reference. It could not have been more of a surprise if we told them that water was wet and they had never been in water. It was just a crazy and funny scenario. And I never thought about how completely different the world was back then, as opposed to now where we have delays because we don't have enough security folks to check our bags, and we're taking off our shoes and our belts, and they're scanning our whole body to make sure we don't have cyber optic body parts and so on and so forth. And that's our new normal. And it sucks. It's not an enjoyable normal, but it is the normal we have all grown accustomed to. Do you remember a time before your trauma and what life felt like? Can you go back to that place? I want to use your own sleeping space as that reminder. Was your room tidy and orderly? Did it have stuffed animals or a grandmother's quilt? Books given to you, books you've read. What was in the space that was so delightful? Go back to a time in your life where you're like, oh, this was it. Maybe you were, a kid and you remember sharing a bunk bed with a sibling and the adventures you would have. The playing and the paper dolls and Legos or whatever. What does life feel like today? Is your new normal sad, hard, disrupted? In my experience as a person recovering from PTSD because of DV, sleep is hard, especially because the person that abused me destroyed my sleep patterns. They created fights at night. So from 9 p.m. till 1 a.m. perhaps, a fight would continue on, lengthy. If I dared to shut off my phone, they would just come to my home, bang on the door, or break into the house and hold me captive to their yelling and screaming and anger until they felt better about it and felt that I had been cowed enough or they ran out of energy. It made it not so nice. There were other things that happened that made life really hard. Me having to sleep next to a person who was dangerous, but rather them next to me than wondering if they would attack in the night. So you can imagine that created a new normal for me that has made it hard. Hard to sleep, hard to relax. When I got free from this person, when they were on the run, intuitively I knew if I'm ever going to be able to sleep again, even though my sleep hasn't been as great as I would like, it's certainly better, I have to change the physical space around me so that it doesn't remind me of the past. Step one, I bought a new comforter with no memories and no experiences, visually changing. I took a can of paint that was a light green, took some blue paint and mixed that with it and made a brand new color, and I painted a wall. I bought a antique dresser on Facebook Market for $25 and polished it and made it beautiful and put it in my room. I moved some pictures. I added a few pictures so I could sleep. So my space felt different. Because our brain attaches to physical things that we see, smells that we have smelled can shoot us back to a memory. I have a friend who, there's a particular kind of hat that her ex always wore. And anytime she sees a man wearing that type of hat, it just is upsetting for her because it's a visual reminder. So recently, with last week being a crazy week, I realized that there were a lot of ideas in my mind that needed to change too. I had already worked on many ideas. I had already worked on very many perspectives, but there was one in particular that I guess has been around for way too long. Before I was being harmed by my ex, I was harmed by other people as well. And I believed that it was my fault, no matter how many times people would tell me. So I was in an Easter service on Sunday, hearing a song about Jesus being our Redeemer. And I thought of a memory and what had happened. And in the process of that service, I feel that God spoke something to me and said, Amanda, you were not created to be an object of wrath. And I didn't quite know what that meant. It was certainly the words I needed to hear. A few days later, I looked up that verse and found that it was in Romans 9:22. But if you read the whole chapter, it's talking about being a people dedicated to God, belonging to God. And it says, at first you were an object of wrath, but by God's gracious mercies, he made you his beloved, his child. It was amazing. It was important. And I realized that I am not an object of wrath, but rather an object of God's glorious mercy. And I believe, and I'm sharing that because I believe that there are a lot of people who think, I've always been a person that attracted anger and abuse and harm. I attracted it. It's me. And what God was speaking to me through an idea in my mind and then through scripture was, that's not who you are. It's something that happened. And it's a belief that I believe Satan wanted me to hold on to. But it's bad, and it's not even true. So I said, I'm an object of God's glorious mercy. This will be my daily meditation for a minimum of 30 days as I rework my thought pattern. But then I had some friends that came in and they prayed for my house, and it was amazing going room to room. And they prayed for me because I was very sick. Um, and I just knew that a chapter of my attachment with my, I don't know, my mind, my heart to this person who's not free, they're in jail, it had been severed completely, with the lie being defeated, with me claiming back my space and saying, no, I want a new normal that isn't this bad nightmare where I have to be broken down and dehumanized and lose my own rights. Not have a comforter I like, not have a picture I like, have to have a color of paint that I don't like. People who are controlling and abusive, everything has to be in their control. The kind of sheets you have. So, after feeling this liberation and freedom, I said, all right, it's time to change some more things. I got a new mattress. I sold my old bed frame and gave some things away. Got a new antique, beautiful bed and put time into cleaning it and scrubbing it and getting it beautified. And I have had 3 glorious days of undisturbed sleep. I mean, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's totally different. In the last months as well, I have finally been able to tackle hard things like clutter. I'll probably do another video about just how hard it is to make decisions when you're overwhelmed and some tricks on how to do that. But I just want to leave you with this encouraging note. I hope it will help. You might have been through some very hard things and started to believe this is just what I was created for in my life. I have no frame of reference for it being different. But just because you don't remember a time when you weren't being hurt doesn't mean that this is what you were created for. Just like those kids who couldn't conceive of a airport experience where they didn't have to unload every bag and gadget and liquid and take off their shoes. Some of us remembered what it was like when it was easier and nicer and peaceful. Reach out to friends that can remind you that things can be different. Consider counseling. Do formative prayer. Get trauma recovery. Because you were meant to live a different life than you may be living today. And it's possible. Yes, it takes time. And it comes in stages and layer by layer. But it can come. I'm proof of that. I'm not extraordinary, unique, special, apart from the fact that every person has intrinsic value and God has made them with that value. So I'm just leaning into it and accepting that I was made to be an object of God's glorious mercy, His beloved child, a part of the world that He's creating for the future. You were too, just so you know. The Bible's not just for me, it's for everybody, and you were created for that too. Thanks for joining me, friends. I hope to see you soon. Have a great weekend, and shorts will be coming. Thanks for listening.